But Jeremy, talk to me about that experience at AEW Collision. Talk to me about the steps going towards that day, and how was it for you on AEW Collision on Saturday?
Well, what it comes down to is you got to be ready whenever you get that call. So with me, it's not a case of getting ready. I stay ready. I don't have to get in shape because, you know, I'm always training. I'm always trying to make sure that I'm at the top of my game. So the call, it didn't come as early as for most people that were there. I got it pretty much days before the event. And so I said, yeah, I can be there. I can be anywhere. You know, you call me, give me, 24 hours, give me 12 hours. I'll make sure I can get there. I live on standby. I live being ready for those big opportunities because you never know in this business when the opportunity is going to come. So, I live for that. And believe me, it's not easy to just drop everything and be there. But I want this more than anything. I want to make my living doing this in wrestling. So those few opportunities that we get, especially as Canadians, we got to seize them. And that's what it was like for me. Getting there, being there. I just tried to stay as mentally ready as possible. And, just tried to make sure that I'm not setting myself up for any disappointment because I had kind of felt like I knew what I was getting into. But in this business, things can always change. So I had to be ready to accept the best and worst case scenarios. I had to be ready to accept that the whole thing could have just fallen apart days before, even minutes before. So until I was in the ring and they rang the bell, I was still saying, hey, anything could happen. I just got to take this all in and savor the moment and make sure that I do the very best with whatever I'm given.
Which you did.
Well, you know what? We're all proud. I know Jacques is very proud as well. Jacques, what was your feeling knowing and seeing Jeremy Prophet, winner of Lift Academy last year, participating in the first AEW Collision in Canada? And by the way, you were the first one to participate at the AEW Dark Elevation tapings as well in Canada. So that's something 2 times that nobody else has done except for you. So Jacques, how do you feel?
Well, I feel just amazing. I saw this big wave on social medias, and it was incredible to think of the days that Jeremy came to my wrestling school when he was very young, a young pup. And then to see that the first day that AEW came to Canada and they took him on Rampage and Dynamite and him and Jessica, and it was just amazing. They're in the record books as the first match ever for AEW in Canada. It's Jeremy Prophet and Jessica Black, and the 2 winners of Wrestling Academy. How can I be any happier? And then a few days ago, it was amazing. Jeremy calls me up. He says, Jacques, I got a scoop for you. He says, there's a good chance that I'm going to be wrestling, in Collision. I said, no way. He says, yeah. He says, I don't want to count on it. He says, I don't want you to tell anybody because if it doesn't happen, I don't want us to do false publicity. So of course, it was so hard for me, Frank, for about 4 days ahead of time to know this and not say a word. So every day I was calling Jeremy, any update, Jeremy? And actually, he probably thought I was a pest, But it was so amazing to see it's funny because there's always, when you go into events like that they're international events and they're worldwide events, then you go into an event like that and they have what they call dark matches, which are matches before that the show goes on the air. They always have warm-up matches for the crowd and for the locals and stuff. So that being said, I was like, wow, the show started and Jeremy didn't show up, he told me he was beyond there, but I didn't see him, and then the first match went by, second match went by, and the third match went by, and I told my girlfriend, I said, no, he's not going to be on the show. I said, the show is getting too hot now. The show is really getting too warm and too big. And then if it's not the last match, just before the last match, and I see Jeremy, and it was amazing. And there's so many things we'll be able to talk about during this show, but the great things that he accomplished, Jeremy, going in there, doing a favor to a guy, Hobbs, that I trained gave a little bit of advice to in Atlanta when I passed by. It's so funny because when I went to Nightmare Factory, I gave him, and we talked. It's so funny because we talked too, me and him, and I thanked Hobbs for what he did for Jeremy, and a lot of people say, well, Jesus Christ, Jeremy got beat up and this and that. Well, let me tell you something, guys. And I know that you guys are professionals, that, but there's a lot of people out there that don't understand that. And I've always said that, and everywhere I went, to create Batman, you need a great Joker. And, and if you don't have a good heel, you can't have a great baby face. It takes 2 to dance. And this guy here, Hobbs, when that match was over with, contrary to a lot of people who felt like, oh man, Jeremy didn't look too good in there. The only thing I was thinking, the only thing going through my mind, I was so happy. I had thrills through my body. I was saying, what a great feeling. I can't, I wish I was a bird or a bee or a fly to go see Tony Khan's face now and QT Marshall, who trusted Jeremy and put him in that position to make this guy look good. That was his job. And what a perfect job he did. And so I was thrilled to death seeing the beating that Jeremy took and selling it well. And when that match was over, I looked at Hobbs and I said to myself, any wrestling fan who's watching this show right now is going to say, oh man, that big black guy is going to get a push, man. Holy mackerel, he's going to get a hell of a push. And so Jeremy Prophet created Hobbs on that night. And that's what his job. So that's what I was so proud of. And Jeremy went there and he did it with a smile. They asked him to jump, and Jeremy said, well, how high you want me to jump? And and that's the kind of student that I wanted to create. That's the kind of guy I wanted to represent Wrestling Academy. And that's the kind of guy I'm glad to have as a friend.
Well, you know what? If years from now, or I think even months from now, I think if Powerhouse Hobbs does become a world champion, I think the journey started with the match with Jeremy. And you know what? Kudos to you, Jeremy. And you did the job for Powerhouse Hobbs. You made him look like $1 million. What was the reaction from everybody in the back on your match, Jeremy, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I wasn't there to hear it, obviously, because I was in the ring. But one of the things I wanted to accomplish was I just said, I want this to be vicious. I want it to be violent. I want to make sure that people are on the edge of their seat, and most important of all, that people watching at home aren't going to change the channel. Because a lot of times you see a match come up and it's like, okay, well, it's a guy under contract against the local guy. We usually know how these things go. So I said, I want this to be quick and violent and just like action, so that people aren't like, okay, well, I'll change the channel. I'll see what's going on the baseball game tonight. I want to make sure they're glued to their seats, because even though maybe the outcome might be something that we know is predictable, the action is going to be what keeps them hooked in. So Jeremy, I love the way the match. Yes,
Jeremy, what he's trying to say, Frank, is your reaction after you went back to the dressing room. Like, when you got back in the dressing room after you did that, and Tony Khan said, thank you very much. And he shook his hand there. When you went back to the dressing room after that, how was it how was Hobbs when he came to see you? Was he, I know I would have been thrilled to death, like, to have a guy like you did what you do. How did that happen?
Oh yeah. Everyone involved in the segment, they were all very happy with it. From my opponent to the coach to when I went right up to Tony, I shook his hand. I thanked him for the opportunity. And then from what I was told, I kind of made the joke backstage and said, my whole thing is I wanted everyone to be watching on the monitor in the back and say, oh, is he hurt? Did he got killed in there? Is this guy is he gonna be walking around like with a concussion or hurt? And I was told by the other wrestlers who were watching, they said, yeah, that was pretty much the reaction from everybody watching it. It was exactly what I went for. So that was great. Even the next day, I'll go this far. Even the next day, I had people coming up to me who had watched the match. And they said, like, are you okay? Was everything fine in there? And I'm like, yeah, it was fine. I've taken bigger meetings than that before. And, still here, still good looking, still able to tell the tale.
Jeremy, I was thinking, if I was one of the wrestlers backstage like that, and I saw that match, you did such a great job that I would be probably one of the wrestlers who would say, I don't want to work against Hobbs. Oh, no, because, he looked like he killed you. And you told me he was one of the nicest and smoothest guys around.
Yeah, I'd work with Hobbs any day of the week. I'd work him 7 days a week and twice on Sunday, like they say. And yeah, definitely. I think that the goal was to show just how dominant and how devastating he is. And at the same time, for me, it's like I want to go in there and show that, hey, if you work with Jeremy Prophet, I will go above and beyond to make you look outstanding in there. If you're a 5-star wrestler, I want to make you look like a 10-star wrestler in there.
And you could do that, Jeremy.
I think that's what you did, Jeremy. That's what you did, Jeremy. Besides shaking hands with Tony Khan, was there other wrestlers that you talked to in the back, interacted with after the match, and even before?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I try to talk to everybody. It's such a talent-filled roster that you would be a fool in this business to not try to go and pick the brains of these people who have been all over the world, who've made a ton of money, and to try to learn a little bit of their secret sauce, a little bit of what makes them the athletes that they are. And thankfully, a lot of them were very kind to spend time with me, give me good advice. We're talking about guys like Mark Henry, like Chris Jericho, who is a big influence on my career, huge influence. And the amount of time that he took to talk with me after the match. We actually spoke first before the match, and then especially after the match. Took a great deal of time to talk with me and share some advice. And then also even CM Punk, and it's the story that's kind of making the rounds a bit on the news sites. But yeah, right before going out for his match, after mine, we had a moment there where we talked, and he was very nice, very, very kind and gracious, especially before going out in front of a hostile Canadian crowd. And he took the time to talk with me. He took the time to talk with a lowly extra who's there, who just so happened to be blessed with getting to be on the same card as him.
Now, wait a minute, Jeremy. Wait a minute, Jeremy. You have a reputation that's following you now, Jeremy. You're like you're an icon in wrestling, in independent wrestling, and you may not know this, but everybody, a lot of people knows you just from the reputation of you being such a great talent. So I'm sure that he knew who you were. I'm sure that everybody knew who you were when you got there, although you're so humble about it. But I'm telling you that your name is circulating. And you know why your name is circulating? Because every time they come into town, AEW or the big companies, they always ask, who's the best talent? Who's the best talent? And your name always comes up, Jeremy. You're one of the best talents in Canada. And and you introduced me a few for Wrestling Academy, and I have the luxury, Frank, that I have two luxuries right now. I got to tell you, people. The first one is having Frank Jofo as a commentator in the ring there, animating the Wrestling Academy. That's just awesome. You're awesome, Frank, by the way. I want you to know that. You did very well, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the 20th. And having Jeremy Prophet beside me as a commentator will making me look so bad, because, he knows what he's doing. But all this to say that I'm honored to be with you guys there. But so no, when the companies come to town, they always ask around. They always talk to the nice guys, the stooges, the haters, and they always ask around and who are the best talent in town. And I'm telling you, Jeremy Prophet, you're a legend.
Well, I try to keep myself as humble as possible, but I do believe in my abilities because I work for this. I work at this every single day. I eat, breathe, sleep professional wrestling, and I want to be the best I can be. I do believe I am the best in Canada. They say the key to getting to one of these major companies like AEW is to get over on the independents. I do not believe there is anyone in Canada who performs at the level I do as often as I do. It's getting to a point where it's ridiculous. Of every show I'm on, I am the best match. And that's not from me. I'm not saying I'm the best match, but you ask the fans. Very rarely am I not the best match.
You had the best match in Wrestling Academy last year in 2022 against that. You had many good matches, but Kyle Zachary's match and the back and forth with the promos was absolutely awesome. And then against Matsis, and who was the other guy in the Matsis in the three-way there? KL Jacques, what a nice guy, and then again, so you always do have the greatest matches. But you know what? What I've liked the most about you, Jeremy, I'll tell you what, is that whether you're in the ring, whether you're on the microphone, or whether you're just backstage, like you do every time we're at Wrestling Academy, and you go see the talent, and you help them put their match together. And I noticed that every time you put your nose into a match, it's the best match of the evening. Even if you're not in it, it's because you got great psychology. You share that psychology, and you're an asset to the business.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all that high praise. I pride myself on what I do. I want to be the best. It's, no matter what I'm given, whether it's being given 2 minutes on AEW Collision with Hobbs, whether it's being given 10 minutes, 12 minutes with Kyle Zachary on Wrestling Academy. I want my work, my body of work, to speak for itself. And I take a lot of pride in it.
Jeremy, there's a point I got to bring to you that I think already, but a lot of the fans, they or the people sometimes, especially some haters, they don't quite understand you, and I want to pinpoint something that's very important. When you are a guy, and I had the same problem too when I was in the WWE and WWF. I had a lot of heat on my back because I was always the guy who would show up an hour early. I was always the guy who would show up like 100%. My mind and my brain 100% focused on what I'm doing. My head was all there. I was the kind of guy after the show that I'd go to bed. I'd make sure that I was rested up for the next day. And I was always the guy with Raymond and then with Carl or myself just going to the gym every day. Just doing so. So when you do all these sacrifices and you do it day after day after day, then when you look around in the dressing room sometimes, and you look around at the guys that are around and they're just worried about their party that night or which nightclub they're going to go at or something like that, it kind of makes you feel like you don't have as much empathy with them. But sometimes it comes across bad in the dressing room. It comes across who does he think he is? Well, that's the problem, haters and guys that don't know what you're doing out there, and you don't want to make this a lifetime deal. The problem is that if you don't do all these things professionally, you're never going to make it. You're never going to make it. And if you do make it for a little time because you got a boost or because you knew somebody at the right place at the right time, it's not going to last. So, so that's why I understand you so much, Jeremy. And a lot of people say, hey, you seem to like Jeremy a lot. We noticed when you talk, when you do business with him and everything. I do, because you are the kind of guy that I was when I was young too. I give 100% of myself into what I do. And those who don't do that, I kind of have a little less respect for them, and maybe it showed in my face. Maybe that's why I was a little hated too in the WWF. If you listen to the podcast of Bruce Pritchard, you'll see he's only one of them that says it. Yeah. But it's the truth. But we'll get back to that later. All this to say, Jeremy, that everybody's got to understand when you're a human being, giving yourself 100%, 110%, 25 hours a day, then you got to make sure that you respect that person and understand that person, that they're going to look at their business or life, that it's the only thing that counts. And if you want to waste your time and your energy elsewhere that's negative, then you're going to lose some pointers with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Did I explain myself correctly there?
You did very well, and I kind of want to piggyback off of that because it lights a fire in me hearing that, and I appreciate it a lot because I love this business and I love this business, and I take it very seriously. Like, people will ask in interviews, what's your favorite part of wrestling? Is it the interactions with the fans? Is it the road trips with the guys? Is it the after parties? And I tell them, my favorite part of wrestling is the wrestling, is the thing that we are so blessed to be paid to do, to get in the ring, to perform. That is my priority. It's not the socializing. It's not the going out and I don't even drink. I'm a straight edge person. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't do me. It's my drug of choice is wrestling, and that is my priority, and that's what I dedicate myself to. And yeah, maybe there are people who are a little bit haters because people like to fit in with the majority, which is sometimes in the middle. They like to kind of be the 1 foot in wrestling, 1 foot in the socializing. Me, it's both feet in the wrestling. And maybe I don't have as much respect for those people because I work damn hard day in, day out to be successful at this. And, I'm not going to let somebody take that away from me, or somebody who's the, person who is maybe not putting in the time in the gym, not putting in the time in the ring, and just trying to have an easy match and take money under false pretense, talk like they're on equal footing with me. I work too damn hard to, rate myself as a second-class citizen to just try to fit in. So if people don't like it, Jeremy, that's too bad for them.
Let me ask you this, Jeremy. Let's now on this positive note now, because I think this is very positive what we said, but I just wanted to explain to the people how I had a lot of haters, and why you have a lot of haters is because we're perfectionists. And when we're perfectionists, we expect the same thing of people around us. And we don't like to see people around that are, excuse my word, but they're bitching about their position, bitching about what they're not getting when they're not giving 100% of themselves. So anyway,